Hi, this is Nathan Whalen, author of the Velessar Saga. Today I just wanted to talk about how I got started writing the story and a couple of tips that helped me starting out. I really enjoyed the Chronicles of Narnia and the Lord of the Rings growing up, the latter of which my parents told me that I'd have to read before I could watch the movies, which I'm super glad I did, or I might not have read the amazing books that are the Lord of the Rings back in junior high. In addition, I just did a lot of reading while growing up, and it really left an impression on me, and I always wanted to create like a story of my own. So it was either 8th or ninth grade, and I decided to try writing, and it only led to a couple of scenes and a rough idea. Thankfully, that story has been put away in the vault, never to be found. However, I was thinking about that attempt while doing online college back in 2018. I had my laptop open one night and decided, oh, why not? And wrote 9 pages that became the rough framework for the first 2.5 chapters of The Voice from the Well. It opened, oddly enough, with Jay in the Kingdom of Velessar, with no opening scene with his family and falling between the worlds, which was a really weird start, and I later changed it. Still, it's always fun to start off a new project with an open page without any editing, not even a single thought of slowing down and editing, just knowing the general direction of where I want the scene to go and finding out the specifics along the way. Prolific fantasy author Brandon Sanderson had a really good point about just writing and hammering something out. Like a paraphrase would be, better to fix a messy page than to not write anything at all. And I think that really helped me write by just going for it and not like worrying about it in that moment of, oh, maybe this wasn't said the correct way, or, putting it in a different framework and just going for it and fixing it later. So like right now, there's like times I'm going through like book 3, and I come back to a scene with something new to add or like adjust after like thinking about the scene for a while that I wouldn't have had thought about on my initial rough draft. While I put aside the editing part while writing for the first time, I wish I had mapped out the plot and had a better framework of the story starting off. I finished the rough draft of The Voice from the Well at the tail end of 2018 and set it aside during 2019 when I had a really busy job that had me working roughly 95 hours every 2 weeks at a minimum. I was out driving, delivering medical equipment like beds and wheelchairs, walkers, and other assorted items, even a few random K-pumps, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically the IV pump equivalent for nasogastric tube feeding. On one long trip, I had the idea for the next 2 books of the Velessar Saga, which would become the end of the series. I wrote those ideas down as soon as I got off of work. After the year that should not be mentioned, I reread my rough draft of The Voice from the Well and found that I didn't really like the second half of it. The latter half of book 1 was filled with just random scenes of just too much walking and traveling for no reason, random dream sequences that didn't lead to anywhere, and a weird stealth part for Jay, and a total MacGuffin ending. Needless to say, I saved the document as a new copy and deleted the last half of the story and rewrote the last half. With the next 2 books in mind, I was able to add in details that would be important both in the first book and for later in the series. Which brings us to 2021, where I was working at a new job, had a ton of rush hour traffic after work, so most of the time I would just stay after work somewhere and just write and edit, which was really, really helpful because there was no distractions, nothing else that I could really do other than just write and edit and focus in on that book. In addition, it just really helped me build like a good habit of gotta work on it today and the next day and the next, and just really got that good habit built up. Even if it only ended up being like a few pages that like really needed some extra work, at least it was some progress that I was still getting somewhere with that. And that's another thing that I do where if I don't have the idea for like a scene in mind, or if I'm spinning my wheels on editing, I usually just put it off and wait and like work on something else. So like maybe just work on the visual novel instead of writing, and that way I can come back to the scene once I've like kind of figured out the idea for it and then work on it then. All of that editing and rewriting brought me to 2022 when I first released The Voice from the Well, and then wrote and released the shorter story Those Who Serve the Shadows. And right now, I am working on the visual novel, specifically adding in sound effects, writing some music for it, and I'm adjusting one of the alternate endings. But other than that, and like adjusting some dialogue with some of the extra characters, it is almost done. And then I'm also currently going through the rough draft of book 3, which is sitting out about 220 pages, or like 44,000 words if I remember right. It's definitely going to be a while before book 3 comes out, because I want to make it, well, obviously, like with any of the books, better than the one before, and especially with this one where I want it to completely eclipse books 1 and 2. And speaking of which, if you haven't checked them out, now's the best time to check them out, with both of them being on Kindle for 99 cents and reduced prices for the paperback for both of them. In addition, the visual novel adaptation of The Voice from the Well has new additional endings and has like revamped pretty much everything in it. So if you haven't checked it out, now is the perfect time to check out that free demo, which covers the first chapter of book 1 and those extra endings that you could have kind of seen some extra hints at, like what happens later in the series, and like what one of them is like an alternate, oh, this could have happened if Jay made the wrong decision. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'll catch you all next time.